MTUC has been calling for social safety nets for minimum wage, right? Do you think it's time that Malaysia heads this way towards a minimum wage, towards a social safety net program?
Minimum wage has been always a controversial argument. Trade unionists will always want it minimum wage. Yeah. The capitalists will always say no to minimum wage. I think a solution needs to be found in between, where we cannot afford to let our plantation workers, for example, continue to be in those conditions, earning those type of wages.
Okay.
So the best way to deal with this issue, social safety net, higher wages for these workers, is for the government to step in.
Okay.
And it is a way to boost the economy as well, because if you give them money...
Step in what way?
Top up, income supplements. Okay, income supplements, instead of giving, for example, wasteful subsidies, okay, you give direct income supplements.
It's a progressive subsidy.
Progressive subsidy?
Yeah, progressive subsidy.
And it should bring them closer towards a reasonable, say, minimum income level.
I just want to backtrack and address the point that you're raising on minimum wages. I think Malaysian economy is suffering from major lack of confidence now, both from the local investors as well as foreign investors. Major. In fact, this year's World Economic Report reduces Malaysia's competitiveness in the world economy by 3 notches, which is quite serious. Also, the World Bank's Doing Business report also says Malaysia has dropped by 2 notches. So, from the perspective outside, when they look at the region, Southeast Asia, Malaysia is increasingly looking very less attractive. In fact, Indonesia is looking very attractive now, though. And in fact, Thailand has, well, for lack of another expression, has successfully come out of the crisis. And we are still caught with the crisis, though. Yep. And we still haven't come out, and there's no guarantee we'll come out of this anytime in the future, in the near future. So I think this confidence has to be rebuilt. Rebuilt at all levels. Business must know that they can come into this country, invest, their profits can be repatriated to some extent, and also they must plow back to the Malaysian economy as well. Now, in that context, workers must be seen as assets of the nation, not as a liability of the nation.
Sure.
Today, it is seen liability of the nation, especially the blue-collar workers. Now, we really have to move away from making Malaysia an assembly center, which is what we are right now. And therefore, when we bring migrant workers into Malaysia, you depress wages.
Yeah, sure.
You will depress wages. So, in that context, when you ask for the government to push for a higher income or even minimum wage, the government will backtrack.
Sure.
So, we need to move out of that. We need to move out to a high-wage economy. Yeah. A high-wage economy in which local Malaysians, including others who are going to come to Malaysia to migrant workers, will be provided the safeguard necessary to live in Malaysia.
The government can say that they've been pushing a lot of money into ICT, multimedia super corridor, etc. They've been pushing money. Let me finish. They've been saying they've been doing biotech. They put money into biotech. They've been saying, okay, let's go into tourism. They're saying education, and now health. They have these kind of initiatives. They have launched corridors. I think we've lost track of number of corridors we have. We have this Canada region. What do you think of all these key initiatives the government has done to build this competitiveness? What do you think are some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses?
Right. Going back to competitiveness, 3 notches down was essentially due to problem with the perception on the, not just a perception, it's quite real, what is known as the institutional framework problem. What is meant by this is essentially the perception on our, openness, transparency, all those that relates to MACC and others. Okay, so that being one, business is just not about ease of doing business.
Sure.
That index has gone up, admittedly.
So However, and things like that.
However, going back to another issue about competitiveness is the issue of ICT. You said it well. I mean, you said it spot on. We were the one who started off the MSc, but right now, by the latest revelation of the Oxford study, we are lagging far behind. We are equal to only Turkey is in front of us. Turkey is in front of us. I happen to have, because I had a question of this in the parliament, and I really wanted to know the answer. And today it's been answered by these studies. Okay, we are behind even Turkey. Yeah, we are far behind Turkey. We've been taken over by China, Malta, Brazil, and Thailand. Only Philippines and Pakistan, Morocco, and Indonesia is slightly behind us. So we are under those group called below today's application threshold.
Wow.
That's sad for a country that was
promising
MSc.
Okay, let me tell you what's the
problem? What's the problem?
Okay, before the knock-on effect on that, I was reading this interview by the Malaysian Australian business, and the guy came out with putting the reason. This is the he was the, I think, vice chairman of this. He came up to give to be forwarding the reason why Malaysia is not attractive as an investment destination is essentially because they require, among other things, good internet connections. Because businesses have got to be, uploading and downloading files that are huge.
Sure.
And you got this crap moving at not even 1 megabyte per second. It is actually only uploading about only 400 kilobytes per second.
That's right.
And 300 over for the uploading and downloading is 400.
Yeah.
So that is the situation that we are in. And for that reason, besides of course the other things on crimes and others, doesn't make Malaysia.
So what do you think has gone wrong? All these government initiatives, ICT, biotech, what's the big picture here?
Two problems. I see it as two problems. One, all these corridors are seen as property plays.
Okay.
They are not meant to promote IT. They are meant for the property developers to make money.
Exactly.
It's the same thing in Iskandar. It's the same thing going to happen in the Eastern Corridor projects, and it's the same thing in Multimedia Super Corridor. Okay, but what is more critical is the fact that in Malaysia there's no level playing field. For anything. You don't have open competitive tenders, you don't have competitive transparency and so on.
A lot of wastage.
No, not so much a wastage, but in this particular case, who is competing with telecom?
Right.
If there's no one competing with telecom, there's no urgency to invest. You need
the government
investment.
can say you got P1, you got WiMAX licenses, you got
Those are
Look at the SSBB rather, high-speed broadband. It's essentially given to telecom, and that is not the best of, they are going
13 billion.
Yeah, they are not even fiber optic. They are using their what do you call that, copper lines, and for this reason, see, because you don't have that competition, you don't have that openness to compete. You don't have the competitiveness.
I think a further point that needs to be emphasized is all these corridors and all this development scandal and so on appears sometimes to be a one-off project. It's not an integrated part of a system. So that means when you have an integrated system, then your planning is very well thought out. You know which corridor is producing what the other corridor is putting. And like what Tony is saying, this entire thing is about inflating the property price and make the fastest buck as possible and then get out of the place though.
Exactly.
That seems to be the approach, and this is dangerous though.
And the other reason is so that I need to win Sarawak, I need to build a corridor. I need to win Sabah, I need to build a corridor there.
These are all instant mechanism.
But further, there's something which is becoming a curse for all of us in Malaysia, is that we have been highly dependent or heavily dependent on gas, oil palm, rubber, and commodities. So that has been supporting us all this while though.
No, we are an old economy, said in plain.
So we have
not made the transition.
We have a good old economy.
Exactly.
But that's running out of steam in the next decade. We
challenge.
don't have a new economy.
Mismanaged before that.
We don't have a new economy to
take over.
A new economy is all about knowledge-intensive enterprises, and they all turn to be property development.
So the way to go forward to answer the second question is actually we should now start looking at services as well as knowledge-based.
But the government say that
the problem is this: we do not have the critical minds in this country to develop local products or local processes. So what we do, we follow the same style of what is this,